Hi everyone. I'm just setting up my phone here. I had to start a new link because the other one seemed to just disappear on me. So here we go. I have myself signed on to my laptop under my Soul Sync Chronicles. So that would have been me typing in, just so I could see the chats and stuff as I go. Beautiful. I'm just going to bring down my volume on my laptop. Still trying to get used to doing all this. Here we go. Hi, Resistor. Nice to see you too. I think I've seen Shannon on there as well. So thanks everybody for coming. I'm just going to wait a couple of, like maybe another couple of minutes, see if anybody else shows up. I got a whole list of things to discuss. So I'm quite excited. I'm nervous, excited. It could be triggering to some. So I just want to put that forward as I'll be talking about alcoholism and addiction. So if your discretion is advised, I guess you could say. So I guess I'll start. So whoever doesn't know me, I'm Andrea. I've been live streaming for some time now. I do all sorts of live streams, from playing guitar to bringing my birds for walks, cooking. You'll never see a baking episode because I do that as a side gig, so I would not give away my baking recipes for the life of me. But yeah, I'm like a Jill of all trades on YouTube. And I love following a bunch of you guys too. So today I wanted to touch base about alcoholism and drug addiction, mainly staying on focus of my own experience. I will sort of touch base about my upbringing and such. But yes, I'll open the floor for questions and answers after the fact, and I'll go back in the chat and as much as I can. If I see something, I'll write it down for whoever asked the question, but I'll try to keep everything for the end for questions and answers. Or if people feel free to share through the chat if you want to relate your story, your experience, or what you've done to overcome your addiction and into recovery. I find it's really important that we talk about this because I find this day and age, especially where I live here in Sudbury, Ontario, Canada, there is a lot of addiction and homelessness. It's rampant everywhere. And I remember when I was living in North Bay about like 7, 8 years ago, it was bad then. And it was like during the COVID time. So when things were like totally shut down and we were all shut down, right? So I feel that after COVID, it's gotten worse. And here where I live, we have this little program. Well, it's not really a program, but we've got these memorial crosses for people that have died from overdose. And there's hundreds of crosses that have been erected for people who have lost family members. And I know a bunch of these people that have crosses, and there's a bunch of people that I know that don't have crosses put up that have died from addiction. Because I used to play guitar on the streets. And so I met a lot of people that were suffering internally and externally. So yeah. Like I said, part of the healing is about talking about our shortcomings and learning from our shortcomings and being able to move past those old patterns. So like I said, this video might be triggering, and if you feel that it is, I suggest not listening to it or coming back when you're not feeling triggered. I do have a list of resources in the description of this video, where you can find AA meetings, and AA is for alcoholics. It's Alcoholics Anonymous. So there's a link that you could click on where it'll direct you to where you could find meetings that are in person, or you could attend meetings virtually through Zoom. Same goes for Narcotics Anonymous, which is NA. There's a link for that. There's also a link for Alanon meetings, and Alanon is for people who are family members and friends of alcoholics. And there's also CoDa meetings, which is very useful for the codependent aspect of people that are dealing with alcoholics or addicts. So because we tend to people please to keep them sober, right? Sorry, I almost lost you there for a second. So I have used all of these types of meetings. I have attended all these types of meetings because of where I was in my recovery, what I've gone through. So I've used these resources, and I still do go to CoDa meetings. I find it very useful when it comes to setting boundaries. So I just want to read a little disclaimer here that I've put together that, everybody's story is unique to their life and situation. One person's healing journey could be totally different and look different from another person's healing journey. And this is not professional advice. This is just simply my own personal experience. Resistor saying that he's been through many programs of alcohol and addiction, and you're glad that the courts ordered it. And you know what? I agree with you completely that I feel that in today's day and age, if somebody has an overdose, I feel that it should be mandatory detox treatment. Because of the cost of how much it is for the courts, for EMS, and for the trauma it causes all of the parties, right? I feel that it would be in the best interest of law all around to make it mandatory that a person who overdoses gets mandatory treatment or has to go to mandatory treatment. So I'm going to lay it out as such. I'm going to talk a little bit about my story, which will actually go into all the other points anyways. And how the second point is how I started using heavy drugs or recreational ones, how I started drinking. I have another part where how I started smoking cigarettes, how I started using weed, and personal tips on withdrawal management. So as you can see, addiction is addiction. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be food, it could be sex, it could be drinking, smoking, drugs, whatever it is, it's managing the thoughts in your head and understanding where it comes from and peeling back those layers of the onion in order to prevent it from happening again. So AA is mentioning that they're really struggling themselves, not in the best spot today. I'm really glad that you made your way here then. I'm really happy that you came across my stream. Thanks for being here. And I hope that some of this information helps you along. As I mentioned, I don't know when you showed up, AA. I do have links in my description that could help you out. If you ever need a meeting, they do offer Zoom meetings for like narcotics, for AA, like Alcoholics Anonymous, Alanon, Alateen too. It's for teenagers dealing with a person who's an alcoholic or whatnot, and CoDa meetings. And of course, there is free counseling available too. You just got to look online and resources within your town. So a little bit of my own story. So like most alcoholics, I grew up with it generationally. On both sides of my family, there was drinking. I find a little bit heavier on my mom's side, and she's also a recovering alcoholic. She quit she told me this evening in 2011. So she is approaching 15 years sobriety. I also have a nuclear family, like my parents are divorced. And so I had a constant, a lot of movement in my life, bouncing around from the alcoholic situation into an abusive home type situation. Teenage life was not easy for me. I was constantly bullied from grade school to college for reasons, either I had buck teeth, I had glasses, my social status of living on welfare in the system growing up, to uh, this or that, just mundane crap, you know, and all of this attributes and contributes to the alcoholism or the addiction later on. Going through my early adulthood, just before drugs, I was engaged in a relationship where I lied to the person about my age. I said that I was like 2 years older than I was, so I always had that on the back of my mind. And he was a big drinker, and he was suffering from addiction of his own and loss within his immediate family. So I could understand where all that came from now, being an adult and having gone through the program. So how I started using heavy drugs is actually the first time I ever did mushrooms. That's how it all started. Was with that relationship when I was about 16, 17 years old. Uh, it started with mushrooms, and it was and I drank there too, but I had started drinking prior to that. Um, and it was a different experience. You think you're cool, it's different. And then in 1998, 99, we had the rave scene here, just like everywhere else, the house music and getting into trance and staying up all night. Um, First time I did drugs, I did ecstasy there. Was that actually my brother's place? And I didn't really get impacted then, except for the second time. And I just didn't feel, I felt strange about it at first when I was doing it. I knew it was wrong, but the second time I used it, you get that overwhelming rush of euphoria from the drug, and it just felt so good. It was replacing everything that I was lacking in my life at the time. I had just lost my grandfather. I was just starting college. I wasn't ready to go to college, and I felt like I was sort of being forced into it. Um, because I was good at art. Oh, you should take graphic design and you do good at it. But I knew I wanted to take time off from uh, from from education, right, and just focus on myself. But after my paternal grandfather passed away, during that time, I started kind of going downhill and started doing the heavy drugs, and it got heavy because it replaced that happiness that I was lacking. I was depressed. I was in an abusive relationship, and yeah, that's why we do drugs, right? Is to essentially is like to numb out that pain, numb out that anger, the feelings, the hurt that you've gone through growing up. And as strange as it may sound, I'm kind of grateful in a sense that the drugs back then in 1999 were a little bit cleaner than they are today, where it's all cut with fentanyl. And I'm really grateful for that because, looking at it now, if I were engaged in the drugs that were going on now, like, the crystal meth, uh, cocaine, it's all cut with fentanyl. And so people these days are really, really risking their lives. So the types of drugs that I've consumed then in 1999 to 2001, it started with ecstasy, well, mushrooms, then ecstasy. And sometimes the ecstasy was laced with heroin. And I did crystal meth, GHB, I mean, cocaine, mushrooms, and of course, weed. And the the things that I'm not proud of during that time is, getting myself into situations uh, where that I wouldn't put myself into if If I were sober, obviously. Steve, drugs are bad. Okay. Yeah, pretty much. So, one situation that I got myself into because, I just wanted to be able to get high is I almost got raped, and that was a very scary situation for myself. Luckily, I got myself out of it, was able to talk my way out of it without getting hurt. But being, I know I'm a good looking girl. It could have ended different for me, I've had, my relationship choices too, hurting people in order to engage in certain relationships, cheating to get out of an abusive relationship, the one with the mushrooms. Even though that it was an abusive relationship, I know better now that it was not right to have to cheat my way out of the relationship. And another thing that I'm not proud of during that time with the heavy chemical drugs is, pawning off my graduation ring that I got as a gift. Um, I'll never forget that, and I'll always feel sad about that I'll never be able to get that back. And it was something that was gifted to me. Um, so it's been since 2001 that I quit heavy chemical drugs and mushrooms. I think it's been since 2011. And I'm looking at my notes here. My game plan away from drugs. So this is how I got away from using chemical drugs or like mushrooms and stuff. The main thing is distancing yourself from the people, places, and things, the friends, and you lose a lot of friends. And refocusing yourself. I refocused all my energy on work and my passions. So I started finding my footing. Thank you, Resistor. I started finding my footing and I started playing guitar again and started writing songs. And that was back when I was quitting drugs. So everybody has their own method of quitting. I knew for myself, I had the voice of God helping me out and the willpower to do so. Some people don't and do require to go to detox. But from my experience, I was able to just tell myself, you know what, this is what I need. I need to distance myself from the people, places, and things that are making me unhealthy. It's difficult. It feels like losing yourself and losing your friends, especially with ecstasy, where that drug makes you feel so happy and so euphoric. And so like you go into a little bit of a depression and you have to just ask yourself, what am I missing here? What am I missing in my life that I needed to do that in order to make myself happy, right? So yeah, you just got to find ways to turn that negative into a positive. So what I'm able to do with that now is I'm able to relate and give my own personal story and to help others. And I do have quite a few people that come to me asking me for help on how to deal with certain situations. And I'm pretty open-minded and a good listener. So if you ever need an ear, just reach out. One thing that was pretty cool while I was playing guitar, well, it was kind of like a little bit of a chaotic situation at the time, but now that it's passed, there was one night that I was playing guitar and on the streets. Of course, I'm sober off of heavy chemical drugs by this time, and I used to have like groups of people coming around. Hey, Jamie, thanks for showing up, buddy. There's a bunch of people that used to come around and just listen, right? And there was always a group of like the downtowners that would come around and just sit down. Some of them would crack a beer and listen in. And there was one guy, he like there's like 10 people around while I'm playing. And there was this one guy sitting beside me and he just pulls out a needle and he's trying to use a band. And just before he poked, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Pardon my French. Okay, so this is not meant for kids. It's like, what the fuck is going on? And I just I stopped playing. I ripped the needle out of his hand and put it down the drain that was at my feet, right? I'm like, there's no way in hell you're doing this in front of me or anybody and doing this to yourself. And he was so out of it, right? And then it took like like 3 minutes before he realized what the heck just happened. I just ruined, you know, his hit. And then he started like, his anxiety started raising and he started getting frustrated. But everybody as a whole, like, was able to diffuse the situation. And I just grabbed some money from like whatever I had made and got him, and somebody else offered to go grab coffee. And so coffee was brought back. And the next day, after all of this happened and I ruined his hit, he actually approached me and thanked me for that. So I know it's like that's an aside, but it's like something turning a negative into a positive. Um, See, Jamie, I used to smoke weed and I used to do like I used to do mushrooms too. And I understand how it could be used medicinally. I don't hold that against anybody. My mom uses, medicinal, like gummy bears. She has osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, and MS. So I understand there's a place for everything. For me, at this point in time in my life, I'm just trying to be as clean and sober as I possibly can. I've had many people ask me if I wanted to do those ceremonies. I should do those ceremonies, like ayahuasca or a boga or a cambo. And you know, there's this one guy that I met, and he was telling me about one of those a boga, and at the time I'm like, I'm pretty aware of a person as it is, and I think there's nothing that I can't do in sobriety, you know, that I doing that drug will just increase the chances, like fast track it, right? But I don't believe in that fast track with those drugs. I feel that people want to fast track everything in life, but it doesn't get you anywhere. It gets you nowhere fast. I feel that healing you should go with the flow of it and not force it. Thank you, resistor. Again, yeah, some of the material that I talk about could be triggering to some. So how I started drinking and how I quit drinking. So I remember the first time I drank was with my cousin, and she's 2 years older than I, and she brought me to this party that she was invited to, and I got hammered. I was like probably 14 and a half. And I remember like French kissing with this boy there. And I was just so drunk and out of it. And I remember walking all over the highway back home. Like we could have gotten hit, or I could have gotten hit. And I remember being so sick that night. And yeah, it was some house party that she brought me to. So when I pass by that area, I always think back at that pivotal moment in my life. Uh, and when I was in that relationship where I used mushrooms for the first time, he was a big drinker too. So I did drink along, but I'd never get like really ridiculously drunk. And I think in the back of my mind, I always said, like, because I went through like generational alcoholism growing up. I didn't want that for myself. So always in the back of my mind, I never wanted to become that. So I always was mindful of how much I was drinking. I'm not saying that I never had a good time, so to speak. I've had a few times where I could share some stories where I didn't make good decisions, and yeah, like things that I'm not proud of. How about this? So when I was like 17, 18, going to college, the same time my grandfather passed away and I was going through that tough period, I got caught shoplifting with my girlfriend who was also drunk at Walmart. And I remember that the things that we didn't want to steal, we got away with, but the things that we wanted to steal, we obviously got caught for. And I remember we got off. We had to go to court. We got off, and And then I had to pay like a $50 fine to whatever cause of my choice. So I chose like Alzheimer's to donate $50 to. Um, so that was like one moment that I wasn't proud of. I have drank and drove in the past, not overly over the limit, but still where it's like, yeah, I've had 3 beer and shouldn't drive. Um, Choice of partners, you know, yeah, I think anybody that has drank usually chooses a partner if they're a good time person. So, um, my game plan away from alcohol and why I quit. So, the year that I quit in 2011 or 12, I was in a relationship with a heavy drinker who was a functional alcoholic. Uh, there was always like weekend drinking and during the week with their bowling buddies. And I quit because I was seeing how I was at the tipping point of becoming that generational alcoholism that I grew up with. And I didn't want that for myself. And it was frustrating being in a codependent relationship or relationships. So at the time, I had quit drinking, and it really didn't take much for me to quit drinking. I understand some people, it's a real battle. I understand the battle my mother went through, and some other people that I know personally. Where you really do go through withdrawal, and some people do require detox. And by all means, if you need it, do it, and get yourself in a program because it's if you want a better life, you need to hunker down and do what's best, especially if that's what you're in your heart, that's what it's saying. That could be the bravest thing that you could do for yourself, because once you do that, God's will, and you just go with that flow, and using that willpower to propel you, um, your life will only get enriched following recovery. So, um, at the time in that relationship, I quit drinking because I thought that maybe if I started going to Alanon because of dealing with the alcoholic in my life, I thought I could change him, right? So I decided to quit, go to Alanon, which is the support for people dealing with alcoholics. So I could show them, hey, it's that easy, right? But it isn't really that easy for the person drinking. But in return, the silver lining is that I found my stride and I was able to quit and break the family chain that's been holding me hostage and my family hostage on both sides. So that's when my Alanon journey started, and I've gone to Alanon meetings up until like I think 2 years ago, and now I go to a different type of meeting because I no longer have an alcoholic in my life. So I go to Codependents Anonymous meetings. Looks like we've got some people that are just being silly, eh, Resistor? So how I found my footing. So I started going to Al-Anon, praying and meditating more. Really, the relationships dissolved and that I was in, and I moved back home to find my support. I started rebuilding relationships with my friends and family, and going to Al-Anon and having that group, that wonderful group of people to support me through my journey. It's very important, whether you're on the alcohol or narcotic side or on the Al-Anon side, to find a sponsor. And if you're wanting to get a sponsor, it's good to have somebody that's of the same sex, number one, but also somebody who's been in recovery for at least a few years. I'd say like 3, 4 years. So they're well into their recovery. They're not at risk of falling off the wagon, so to speak. So how long has it been since I personally touched alcohol? I quit in 2012. So it's been a hard minute. It's been 14 years in February. So I'm really happy about that. I wouldn't have the experiences that I've had now uh, drinking, you know. And I do indulge once in a while in those 0% Budweisers. There's absolutely no alcohol. I won't even take that kombucha stuff because there's 0.05%. Like I'm dead set on not consuming anything alcohol. Um, so let's see here. Turning a negative into a positive with the drinking. So I've been semi-active participant of Alanon, AA, CoDa meetings, and sharing my story with others. I have done volunteer work with Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, which is mad. And I've raised money while cleaning up cans on the side of the road in Pembroke, Ontario, to get a sign put up with the OPP and Mothers Against Drunk Drivers to warn people to, call 911 if you see somebody intoxicated. And most recently, I've been involved with them based on a drinking and driving accident that I was witness of. And that's something I'm going to talk about right now. So in March 2024, I got woken up at like 4 o'clock in the morning or so by a loud bang. And I look outside, like it like threw me out of bed. What the hell's going on? And I look outside and it was dead silent, like the silent killer. And all I see is a smoky vehicle and another one in shambles. And so it's raining outside. I put on my clothes and I put on my rain gear for work. And I rush out there. I rush up to the first car that I see. And I'm like, hello, hello, are you okay? Are you okay? And it was this young girl. She was like, I'm okay. And I'm like, then there's a man outside. He must have been the first witness. He's like, go see the guy. So I run up to the guy in the car that's completely demolished. And at first I thought he was the cause of the accident, but it was actually her. And he was in bad shape. His car, like the front end of his car was completely demolished. Had he been another like milliseconds late, she would have killed him. She was traveling so fast up that road, blew through a red light. I'm pretty sure it was a red light she blew through, doing probably about 100 kilometers an hour, uh, in sort of semi-residential area. She hit him so hard that her car was intact, but his car was in shambles. But her engine severed completely from her car 40 yards down the road. That's how hard she hit him. He suffers from life-altering injuries now due to it. She blew double the amount over. She was only on a G2 license, like her second stage of license, using her dad's car that she stole without permission. She is waiting sentencing at the end of this month. It was supposed to happen this week, and I went to the courthouse to see her sentencing, but it was adjourned to a further date because I guess her defense lawyer had only got their information soon. So I'm hoping that this is the silver lining, that I'm able to give a witness statement now, given the fact that I was there, gave a statement to the police officers, and I was there for her son. I really do hope I get to meet him someday because it's kind of like the closure to the chaos. And I want him to know that I do care and it has impacted me. So I was in touch with Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. Like that night, I'm like texting them with my phone, like, there's something that needs to happen with this intersection. There's no reason why people can't call a cab, call an Uber, call a U-Ride, take the bus, take a fucking train, call a friend. There's no reason these days that you can't do that. It's just your own ego saying, oh, you could drive home, don't spend your money. Well, that girl, in all of her white privilege, almost killed that guy that was just starting to get his life, in motion. It's really sad. So it's nice with my sobriety, I've had a bunch of people come up to me asking for advice too, like, how did you get sober? What can I do? So it's nice to be able to share my little bit of wisdom that helped me. And like I said before, my recovery could look different from somebody else's, and the tools that I use could be different from what you need. And don't stop trying. And that's the main thing, is that you can't stop trying. You'll get there. Sometimes it takes a few tries. I know with smoking cigarettes, I think that was, other than smoking pot, that was my hardest vice to quit. And so that's what I'm going to talk about next. And it's kind of like a silly addiction, but it's still something big, because people die of cancer and have COPD. I know, Steve, cigarettes stank. They do. So I remember the first time I smoked a cigarette was by my grandfather on my paternal side. And this traumatized me. I was so young. I must have been like a year or two old. But I don't know why we had like a snorkel mask like tube, but I remember I was playing with it, and I remember he called me over, something along that line. All family was around, my grandparents, my mom and dad. I think there was an uncle and aunt there, and he just took my mom was smoking at the time, and this is when smoking was acceptable more or less in houses, and he just took a drag from a cigarette and blew through the tube because he thought it would be funny. But I'm like coughing my face off. I'm like a toddler, right? My mom's trying to give me orange juice. Everybody's giving him shit. So that was the first time I ever smoked cigarettes. And I remember like going to cadet camp when I was like 12 years old. And at that time, because I'm 44 now, I'll be 45 this year. At that time, you were able to buy cigarettes anywhere. Like they had like vending machines for cigarettes. And I'm sure that some of the oldies know about that, the old vending machines where you could just like pop in some money and buy smokes anywhere. Well, those days are over. So I remember like buying a bunch of packs of cigarettes at cadet camp when I was like 12 years old, and smoking, thinking I'm cool. And I always told myself I never wanted to smoke because I didn't want to die like my grandma. And here I am, I'm like smoking at 12. So the things that I'm not proud of with smoking. So that paternal grandfather, he used to always fall asleep early on the couch. And I used to always steal his cigarettes out of his shirt pocket. I would like slowly pull when I was living with him in Miami, I'd slowly pull the pack out and like steal a couple of cigarettes and slowly put it back in. He probably knew his smokes were going missing. He just never said anything. But yeah, I'm not proud of that. But it's funny, but it's not funny. My game plan for getting away from cigarettes and why I quit. Well, it seems like every time that you quit smoking, for me especially, I'd quit and then I'd fall off the wagon, and then I'd smoke like 10 times worse than when I was smoking. And so I even got a friend to hold on to a pack of cigarettes for me. I'm like, hey, can you hold on to these? And I'll just call you once in a while for a smoke. And it turned into, I'll just buy a pack myself. So then I was just like, and when you live near a reservation, smokes, you could buy like a bag of smokes. There's like 300, I don't know, I'm going to say 300 smokes. I really don't know how many are in a pack, like a bag of smokes, but they're already pre-rolled. And for like dirt cheap, like 15, 20 bucks. And so you could justify smoking, right? And oh, well, it's cheap, whatever. You know that they're super raunchy. Some of them smell like buffalo sage and, ground scrapings. You're like, oh, whatever. It's like 15 bucks for a bag. Here's like 10 smokes, buddy, So after a while, like smoking those smokes, it just doesn't make your lungs feel good at all. And I'm like huffing and puffing all over the place. And I'm like, oh, I just want to feel better. And so the way that I quit smoking the last time is that I used to hand roll cigarettes too. And I was real quick at rolling my joints back in the day. So I used the patch to quit smoking cigarettes. What I did is I would use the step one. I don't know if patches are the same in the States as they are here, like the nicotine patches, but I would start with like the full step one, right? And after 2 weeks, I would literally cut the step one patch in half and only use half of a step one. And yes, I'm Canadian. And I'm from Ontario, Canada. And so then I would have step one half patch for another couple of weeks and, finish off my box of step one patches. And then I would go down to step two and cut those in half immediately. And the biggest thing about quitting smoking cigarettes, I find, and sometimes maybe for alcoholics, it's the hand to mouth, right? So you got to find a way to replace that constant need, oral fixation, for like to have something in your hand to your mouth, right? So like whether you got to like draw, journal, paint, use your hands another way, carve a fucking stick of wood, just get creative. Right on, Steve. Whereabouts are you in Ontario, Ontarian? Well, that's it. I did quit cold turkey, as you know, from what I've talked about. It didn't work very well for me, so I found that doing the patch was the best way. I've tried the gum, and the gum would make me feel nauseous. Oh, I hated the gum. It like just. I've got a pretty good gut, but those were not good. Oh, you're all the way south. I'm in northern Ontario, in the Sudbury area. So yeah, I use the patch. And again, ways of finding my footing and moving on from smoking. I had, just going for walks, because you always got to remember, okay, well, this craving is only going to be about 5, 10 minutes. So I'm going to go do something to replace that craving. Drinking a lot of water, you know, eating well, eating a lot, art, painting, anything to do with your hands. See, I play guitar, so that's another way for me to keep my hands busy, right? Um, and I quit smoking cigarettes in 2017. So it's been a hot minute for those two. So turning a negative into a positive. So the things that I've gained is like my lung capacity again. And like I was talking about, was that I was always huffing and puffing, and I'm a pretty active person. So 2 years ago, in the summer, it would be 2 years this summer, I did a 100-kilometer loop trail in Killarney. Steve, you would know where that is, more than likely, Killarney Provincial Park here in Northern Ontario. They have a 100-kilometer difficult backcountry trail. And so I did that trail in 4 nights, 5 days, and it's very demanding. And it's a lot of up and a lot of down and a lot of up and a lot of down. So if I was still a smoker, I wouldn't be able to do that in that amount of time, let alone do it at all. And this year I did a 25-kilometer return trip solo with my pet pigeon, actually. So it wouldn't be entirely solo, human solo, yes, on the Lake Superior Coastal Trail. That was really, really beautiful. Another thing too, from quitting smoking or any kind of addiction, all the money that you're able to save, if you're good at saving, in my case, I was able to save some money as a result. So for the final vice, weed, and it's the longest standing addiction. So yeah, I started smoking weed, I think at 13 years old. And I think one of the first times that I remember smoking it was in my uncle's, at my uncle's place with his ex-girlfriend's brother and his friend. And it was like, uh, what do you call it? A shotgun through the tent of like, I think it was oil. And I found weed to be the hardest of them all for me because I really enjoyed smoking marijuana a lot, a lot. And I still love the smell. And it's difficult sometimes when I'm around people smelling it. because that trigger, the smell, and just the thoughts of, oh, it'd be nice to relax and have a joint. But I always remind myself, well, why do I need that? So, why I quit is because recently I was in a relationship with somebody who was very health conscious, and he didn't mind that I smoked weed, but I felt weird about it. I felt weird smoking a joint and smelling like weed, kissing him and smelling like weed, like an ashtray of pot. And so, like, I think just from that awkwardness and grossness that I was internalizing and feeling, I quit smoking pot just to be healthier and to also have like a better relationship, even though that the relationship has dissolved since. Um, and I found it hard because, like, it relaxes you, but it also brought me a lot of anxiety towards the end. So I'm really happy that I quit too, because you get anxiety, maybe a little paranoia too. And so I just feel a lot healthier. And how I kept from smoking is just refocusing my attention on other things that matter, my hobbies and the chores that I need to get done. Because sometimes when you're smoking, you're like, oh, I'm going to conquer the world, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And then you smoke one, and then you're like, whatever. So I was able to save with the help of my mother. Here we are in this home, and it's all because mostly like being able to save money from also quitting in order to get this house. So I'm really grateful to have quit and maintained, because I know that if I were to smoke, and I was offered, like I questioned it on New Year's Eve this year. I'm like, oh, why not? Just smoke a little bit with my best friend, right? And I didn't. And it's a good thing that I didn't, because I love it so much. I would probably get back into it tenfold, like the smoking, and I just don't want to take that chance, and in the back of my head, it's like, well, I'm doing so good. Why do I want to risk breaking my 2 year streaks? It's going to be 2 years in March. Why would I risk breaking that 2 year streak for once, So that's why I still have quit, and I'm not going back. So now for the final part here of this is my personal tips for withdrawal management. So again, this is not professional advice. This is just my personal experience and what I've used in the past to help me overcome the things that I've overcome and talked about, whether it was heavy chemicals, heavy chemical drug use, alcohol, quitting smoking weed, anything, any kind of addiction. So cognitive behavioral therapy really helped. I've done counseling and detox treatment centers. That's also really beneficial. I did go, in regards to detox, I never did a detox treatment for any of my addiction. However, at the time they were offering a family program through in a different city, Elliott Lake actually, at the Oak Center, where family members of alcoholics or addicts could do this Alanon based program over 12 days. And you get fed there, you got chores, you do homework, you have a counselor, and you talk it out and creating boundaries and stuff with your loved one who's suffering from addiction. So I did do the family program. I think it was 12-day program, and I found it to be extremely beneficial. And knowing what is acceptable and what is not. Because people who do have loved ones who are addicts or alcoholics, there's some things that we do that is actually destructive towards their addiction. So it's really good to learn how to set proper boundaries and how to maintain them, even in moments of manipulation from the addict. So that was a really good program for me. So if they offer that anywhere in the States or anywhere in Canada in your area, look into it. If they have like a family program through detox centers. So aftercare after the detox and treatment is very important. So once you get out of treatment, it's like it's good to get into counseling, have a good support system, go to meetings, in order to stay on track. Because that's the hardest part, is falling back into the same repetitive cycle. And that's what you want to break, essentially, are those patterns. So another thing too, you got to recognize when you start to ruminate and what you're thinking about, and especially if you're thinking about using, and oh, it'd be so nice and I miss that. Like, you got to snap out of it, and refocus yourself. I find it's useful to write down a list of the things that you can do when you're feeling triggered. So when you do get into those moments, even if you have it on your phone, what am I going to do when there's something that triggers me, into drug or alcohol use? What can I do? So, because you got to recognize the thought patterns that trigger, or the places, or the people, or the things, right? Dopamine hits with every comment. Just journaling is a good thing too, like when at any time in your recovery journey, especially at the beginning, writing down your thoughts, because sometimes it's hard to talk about the things that you feel shame towards and guilt. So it's good to write it down. And then eventually over time, you're going to be able to open up to somebody about those things. And eventually maybe you'll be able to ask for forgiveness for those things. And that's just all part of the healing journey, right? And it's part of the 12 steps of recovery. So journaling is very important. Going to meetings in person or through Zoom. Like I said, in the description of this video, I've posted links that you could access. And they have Alanon meetings, AA meetings, NA meetings worldwide. So it's a good, useful tool in the moment. If you need it, use it. It's a free resource. Get a sponsor. A sponsor is very important. Like I said, it's good to get a sponsor who is of the same sex, so you're not confusing and creating a very uncomfortable situation later. But also a sponsor who has been in sobriety for at least 5 years, so you know that they're on track, they've worked their program. Another thing too is you want to create new experiences in life. Do things that you haven't done, be afraid to jump out of that box. And another thing too, I find useful, is sitting down with your family members and saying, listen, I can't be around alcohol, I can't be around drugs, and creating boundaries, letting them know what you need and what they can do for you. Even discussing a safe word, for crying out loud, it's so they know that if that's said, then you're starting to feel uncomfortable. So whether you could go for a walk, if let's just say Christmas time, let's use, like, I don't know, a celebration of sort where, it's just socially acceptable to drink, and you're quitting drinking. And everybody's drinking around you, you start feeling that anxiety, you're grinding your teeth, you don't know what to do with yourself, you don't want to be around there, just let somebody know, listen, I need to go for a walk, I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable right now. Go for a walk, there's nothing wrong with that. And if you feel you need to leave. Just let them know, like, I gotta go, it was nice visiting, but I need to go. And go find yourself something that will enrich in your heart, when you leave. Call your sponsor, attend an online meeting, or in person, play guitar, read a book, take a bath, work on your self-care. It's very important. So yes, creating personal boundaries is a heavy one, and I think it's very important. Is for somebody in addiction, coming out of addiction, to create boundaries with their family and friends. Um, so also at the beginning of your addiction, of your recovery, is avoiding people, places, and things that causes triggers, right? And that's very important, because you're just asking for trouble, is re-entering that when you think you're okay, but no, it takes time. And knowing, I lost my late partner from addiction and from an overdose, and God knows how many times he's tried to get sober. And I wish he was still here. He would have been a really good life coach. But in a sense, I'm happy that we met, and feel part of this discussion is also for him, for Chris. Um, I could feel him, like I could feel his presence here. And so, yeah, so avoiding people, places, things that causes triggers. Rediscovering your passions. Again, that's very important. Is what did I used to do? You got to think back. What did I used to do before I did all that shit? Before I drank, before I did drugs. What made me happy? What are things that I used to do as a kid? Oh, geez, I used to do this. I used to finger paint. I used to sew. I used to, like, whatever it is, play with Legos, you know, get back into those things, rediscover them. Ask yourself what activities you used to do. Yeah, that used to bring you happiness. Bring back that happiness. Or, like I said, create new experiences, you know, once a month, even. Start with once a month. What am I going to do that's completely out of my box of normality? Do it. You know, um, drink a lot of water, eat healthy, get enough sleep, and meditate, pray. Very important things, because if you're not eating properly, you're not thinking properly, you're not getting the proper nutrients, you're not getting enough sleep, because your mind's just going, right? So it's all a cycle. You gotta take care. You gotta focus on your self-care. It's very important. For me, I'm very nature, I'm like a nature nut. So I love going to nature to find my serenity, and where I could go and meditate. I could talk to my higher power, to the creator, and re-engage and disconnect too, um, from societal pressures or whatnot. So if you have nature, even if it's along a path that has nature, stop. Listen to the sounds around you, whether it's the trees, whether it's the birds. Just let nature take you and let nature guide you. Nature is there to connect to. And I find that these days we're so consumed by technology, we're so consumed by distractions, that we're forgetting what life is really all about. So get back to that. And another thing, prayer and meditation, slowing down your thoughts. Exactly. Praying to God, your higher power, keeping an open heart, following, going with the flow. It really does help. So here's some slogans. There's just a few I wanted to share with you that have helped me. When you're having a moment and you're like, everything's going so wrong, and you're just like giving yourself the poo-poo talk, just remind yourself, one day at a time, I can get through this. Even if it's one moment at a time, 1 second at a time, you'll get through that second, and then it'll be a new second. So get through that next second, one moment at a time, one day at a time. Easy does it. Take care, just take it easy. Or this too shall pass. That moment of anxiety, that moment of feeling withdrawal, it'll pass. You just need to find a way to occupy yourself in a constructive way. So I think I am done with my big rant. Almost 1 hour. But I want to open up the floor for people with questions or with comments. I'm going to go back and read some of them. Next time, I'm hoping on getting like a burner phone so I could set up like a text now account so people could call in. So I'm just going back to the beginning here and I'm just reading. So AA, yes. I hope that you're still here, AA, and some of the information that I offered helped you. And like I said, I do have resources that I've posted in my description that have helped me. They may help you, but there's other avenues that you could go to as well. There's so much information if you just Google it. And even if it's something crazy and deep that you don't want to talk about, I'm sure that there's an answer or a solution to any problem. You just got to look for it. Mr. Osgood was saying he's experimented when he was young. It's true. You never know what you're getting these days with the drugs. There's so many people dying. Like here where I live, we have, like any other town, we have tent cities, right? I was just reading an article because a young woman, 38 years old, died in her tent. And here it's like minus 20 degrees Celsius. Okay. So we have this tent city of people, 30 tents and 80 people that are living in these 30 tents from this article. And, I don't understand why we can't have like a tiny house community to help people get off the streets and, and to get sober. Like, why not create a program out of that, right? Instead of handing out freshy needles. My late partner, he did intravenous drug use by the end, and he agreed with me because we did a lot of needle cleanup, and he agreed that giving out fresh needles is not the solution. His dad had diabetes and had to pay for his needle. So why is it that somebody who uses drugs could get fresh needles, whereas somebody who has diabetes has to pay? Even though they call it harm reduction, is it really reducing harm for you and I and other people that aren't using the drugs, right? And so and if they are going to offer a program like that, if people are supposed to hand back the same amount of needles, they should have like a tablet, like, the harm reduction program should have a tablet. So and so, their name. They were issued 5 needles. Well, there should be 5 returning. And if they only offer 3 back, then they should only get 3 extra, right? Where did the other 2 go? Oh, we didn't use them. Okay. Well, it'll reduce the amount of needles on the streets because I know from knowing people, from playing guitar on the streets and knowing some of these individuals, that they're in such a depression, they don't care where they're throwing their needles. They really don't. So I think it's a ridiculous program too. It's only reducing population. That's all it is. That really is. Yeah, I know my mom, when she's feeling pain too. Oh mon Dieu, Mr. Osgood. I didn't realize that you had 2 car accidents. That would explain a lot of pain, yes. You poor thing. 6 years now. Congratulations. That's wonderful, Resistor. And many more. That's great. Yeah, cigarettes were hard for me too. I find that marijuana was the hardest. It's amazing that Washington State has legalized marijuana. I wonder how many at I don't know if you call it Parliament Hill there, but how many of them smoke weed? Yeah, Oregon. Yeah, because I remember, well, maybe not when I was visiting, it was legal. I visited Oregon in 2009, and I remember like kind of like I was in Seattle and I was like trying to find somebody. Hey, do you know where I could find pot? Because I obviously didn't bring any across Canada into the States. I find that YouTube, it is a good escape, but it's also good to get out there too, Mr. O, if you can, not to isolate yourself too much. Yeah, I agree with you too. Resistor YouTube was a had has a many good resources for dealing with narcissism. It's helped me understand the mind of a narcissist and how to create boundaries and how to not allow yourself to get hovered back into situations. That's why I find that going to my Codependents Anonymous meetings, I'm not dealing with an alcoholic in my life or an addict in my life any longer. So those meetings do no longer apply. So I find that going to CoDa meetings, it helps with yeah, learning boundaries and to be able to relate with people because it's about dealing with personalities, principles above personalities, right? Yeah, I think everywhere is a failing with the drug situation real bad. Like I wish I could share with you a photo of uh, of the crosses here in Sudbury, but like I said, there's well over 100, and and those aren't everybody that died of an overdose. That's just the families that have reached out to the person in charge of that project to erect these crosses, and it upsets some people that they're there, and good, as it should upset you. And I wish that our city councilors could actually attend open meetings to understand from an addict or an alcoholic's perspective, the plight that they face and to gain perspective because they probably would not agree with some of these projects otherwise, like the harm reduction. We even had a harm reduction program for alcohol. And talking with some people that were in it while I was playing guitar on the streets, uh, you were allowed to put your booze that you've already bought into a locker, go through this program where you're given an ounce of alcohol every hour, and then you could leave with your bottle of alcohol that you had locked up at the end of the day. What is that? What is that? That's enabling behavior in my books, kind of like the harm reduction program. It's sort of enabling. It's like, okay, so question for you folks. When you see somebody who's homeless, right? Panhandling, do you give them money? When you see somebody panhandling asking for change, do you give them money? Because that money that you could be giving them could be going towards alcohol or drugs that could kill them. So my best advice is to ask them what they need if they're thirsty or hungry instead of, hey, are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Can I get you something to eat? You know, that would be a better solution, you know, than giving change because that change could essentially kill them. That's my thoughts on that. This is coming from somebody who's lost somebody dear. So we are finding many fraud programs with the drug problem. That's why there's a problem. Yeah, I get really frustrated with the programs in Sudbury. like when they first started the harm reduction program, I used to get so upset at it. And this is before, like, I even dated somebody with an intravenous drug problem. I used to always want to stand outside of the soup kitchen with like a bag full of candy and be like, want some candy? Candy? Want some candy? Candy? Standing beside the people with the needles. Because it just pissed me off so much that they're just handing it out like candy, right? And like the amount of needles that you find on the trails, and like kids and dogs and families walk these trails. You can't climb any rocks, and Sudbury's full of rocks, right? And kids like to climb, and like the parks are full of needles, and you know and maybe it's until like somebody in City Hall that gets directly impacted by addiction, maybe then they'll realize how severe of a problem it is. It's federally funded, exactly. So I think it's just a social cleansing, to be honest. But what do I know? Um, it's really sad. It's really sad what this world has come to. So going back to when I was living in North Bay in 2019, during the start of COVID and stuff like that, um, they were trying to figure out how they were going to open up a barrier-free uh, shelter, a 24-hour shelter, because they didn't have one where people that were even intoxicated or under the influence could go. Because the ones that they did have, you had to be sober in order to stay the night. And that's a problem here. Like, people just can't shake it for a few hours. So, and during that time, I was going around. I was off work at the time, so I was going around and making soup and all my desserts and stuff that I currently make. And I was like feeding the people that were street bound. I don't like saying homeless, but uh, they're in a tough situation. So I would like use my car as a warming shelter and this and that. And the day before the shelter actually opened, after advocating for it for so long, amongst other people too in the community that were trying to advocate. Hey, the kindred story, welcome. Yeah, one of the kids that was on the streets, he almost lost his toes to frostbite, and this was the day before, the day before the shelter opened. During that time, just before it opened too, I would say about 3 weeks before it opened, I went to California. I went to Los Angeles, and I wanted to go visit Skid Row. I wanted to see how bad it was in Skid Row compared to North Bay, Ontario, where their motto in North Bay is where lifestyle and family come first. Make sense of that for me. Where lifestyle and family come first. Guitar, mic, guitar, didgeridoo, djembe. That answers the question. So I went to Los Angeles with the intention on going to Skid Row and to visit Skid Row, because I did the math and the percentage per population was the same for homelessness as it was in Los Angeles to North Bay. The same percentage per population. Isn't that crazy? So it didn't matter if it was like 9 million people there or maybe 75,000 people in North Bay. It's the same percentage of the population that's homeless. Crazy. Why? Because lifestyle and family come first. So I go to Skid Row. I'll never forget this. And I was just like, I was taken back. And this is before it got real bad. And if you get the chance to, I suggest you go check out this one guy. He's got a really good YouTube channel where he interviews people called Soft White Underbelly. Yeah, California is wild. And he interviews this one character in the skid all the time. And his name is Rebecca. I say his because it's a he. Anyways, that's a whole other story. But when I was in Skid Row, I was looking around at my surroundings. Where am I? How did this all come about, right? Well, Skid Row is conveniently located between the financial district and the fashion district. So it kind of like shows you the problem, right? And like vanity and money and keeping up with the Joneses and then not being able to support yourself and by keeping up with the Joneses. So you start to get addiction issues and just putting things on hold while you're, and then the kids don't have their parents at home because they're too busy at work trying to make money and being like, so I feel that is like pretty much the reason why we are here today suffering from so much addiction is money and vanity. It makes a lot of sense. Some people, it could be other things too. It could be from generational trauma, the indigenous people going through what they did when the colonists came in. There's so many reasons for it, yes, but essentially money, greed, and vanity. I'm just reading Blueberry's comment. I'll see, I can stop smoking again. The date looks perfect, and maybe your wisdom. That was a little push I needed. Wonderful. I hope that some of the information that I gave to you can be of use. And like I said, if you fall off, hop back on right away. Don't feel bad about it. Just get her done. And the internet, as much as it could be a bad thing, it could also be a good thing. So do some research, like just keeping yourself busy, really, and finding something to fill in that void. It's also good to understand why did I start smoking? Where does that stem from? So, yeah. Thanks for popping in, Blueberry. That's awesome. My little white dove HP is sitting on 2 unfertilized eggs, tending to them with all her might. She is eggy right now. She is a brooding hen. She is not happy when I go visit her. So anybody else have do you have any personal stories you want to share with your recovery, or do you have any questions? I see we're at 1 hour and 17 minutes. I find it gets easier over time. And also another thing too, with peer pressure, when people are like, oh, come on, have a drink, no is a complete sentence. So you don't have to explain why you're saying no. Just like, why do you have to explain yourself when you're saying yes? You don't need to, right? So keep that in mind. So always have like a plan. If you're going out and you don't want to drink, and nowadays they make great mocktails too. So people, oh, is there alcohol in it? Yeah, sure. Or be like, no, man, I'm riding the sober train. Make it an in thing. Like I find it's just way too socially acceptable, and it's all we've known. Most of us, like growing up, like every holiday, do we hate each other that much that we need to drink in order to feel comfortable around each other? Oh, thank you, double A. That was a little orthodontic work when I was younger. I used to have like really bad overbite, like, but yeah, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Yeah. So that's one thing I asked when I was going to the family program when I was getting dropped off by my dad. When's the last time we all been able to be around each other sober? Can we do anything in sobriety anymore? So moving forward also is that like most of my family members on my mom's side, and remember my maternal side is the side that had most of the alcohol problem, the biggest, I could say. I would say 90% are sober. So that's awesome. Hey, Mom. How many of our relatives on your side are sober now? Would you say about 90% of your siblings?
All of my siblings.
Even Auntie S down south?
Well, yeah.
She doesn't.
She's in her 80. I think she's 85.
Yeah, but she doesn't drink anymore?
She doesn't drink.
100%. There you go. Oh, Resistor says hi, Kim.
Which sister?
Resistor.
Oh, tell him I said hi.
She says hi.
How are ya?
You should ask him yourself. She's doing her thing. She says hi. So yeah, it's it's wonderful to be able to break the generational curse of alcoholism, the bad spirits, right? We're looking for the wrong one. We get a demon that follows you the rest of your life unless you banish it away by becoming sober. Oh, maybe that's when we'll see the set. Like, take this as a joke, everybody, but maybe we'll see the second coming of Christ when he gets sober off of the Jesus juice. It's a new magic trick. It's wine into water. Anyways, yeah, just some silliness. But I'm really grateful that you all hung out and, took it to stock what I had to say. Like I said, again, there's resources in the description. Feel free to like and subscribe if you want to as well, because I do all sorts of videos from like bringing the birds for a walk and cooking and shooting the shit and, playing music. And hopefully soon I'll be drawing on leaves again, because that's something I used to do on one of my old channels called Leah Luna, or All Anonymous, is I used to paint on leaves, landscapes. I'd take a photo of somewhere and grab a leaf from that area, and then I would draw that landscape on the photo. So I'm hoping on getting back into that and maybe having silent auctions. So then I could donate some of the proceeds towards different causes that are near and dear to maybe us. Maybe I could get, a list of different things to, donate to fundraise for. So yeah, also if you want to check out another channel that I have called Soul Sync Chronicles, please do so. Because I know that once you get sober, you're gonna get a little bit more in sync with your synchronistic, spiritual, intuitive side. So when that happens, you might go down a little bit of a rabbit hole and know that I've been there, I've cleaned it up. So in Soul Sync Chronicles, I talk about a lot of my spiritual synchronicity and connections that I have. So if you've had moments like that, Resistor just posted the link to get there. Feel free to check it out, like and subscribe that too. I have a few videos that I want to post very shortly of that are long past due, but I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for tuning in from Germany, Moon Love Freedom. I appreciate it. Thank you, Resistor. Yes, it's very strange, some of the synchronistic stuff that happens in my life, and I sometimes still wonder to myself, who am I to experience this stuff? But I'm really happy to be able to convey it and share it with you guys openly and freely. So yes, again, thank you for coming along and enjoying the ride. If you need resources, that were helpful to me. I've shared them in the description of the video. Otherwise, I hope that I see you again soon on another live stream that I might do. So I hope you guys have yourself a good evening, good morning, good night, good afternoon, wherever you're listening in from, or whatever day this might be for you. Today is it the 19th today?
The
Or the 18th?
18th, I think.
Oh, it says the 19th here. Oh, it's the 18th, actually. My laptop is not the right time or date. So it is the 18th today.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for coming along and allowing me to share space and to share my thoughts on alcoholism and addiction and what I've gone through with my story. Thank you. Thank you again, guys. Thanks.